Okay, folks, we still have a few people coming in, but we're going to get started. We have a very large group today, and I'm really happy to hear that because I think this is something important for all of us. After we did our uh, tech club discussion last summer on security, uh, Smart 911 came up briefly in a discussion there, and I had several people call me and ask if we could do a session on that. It's taken a little while to put everything together to do it, but we're going to be doing that today. So I really appreciate those people who came up with the idea and made the suggestion, and we finally got that taken care of. So as usual, let me start out with a few thank yous to for our program, obviously to Cap Fed for their funding, and also for the Sharon and David Katzman Fund for their funding of our program. Um, I also just want to take a half a minute to say many of you have probably gotten the email, may or may not have had a chance to read it today. But just so you're aware of the rebranding that's going on with Retirement Boot Camp, it's a turns out that we just found out through a letter that it's a brand name that was trademarked by an insurance company out east, and they are protecting their trademark, which they have a right to do. After consultation with several lawyers and our board and our marketing department, we have decided that the best and easiest thing to do is to rebrand our organization, and we have taken the name Retroactive, and that will be the new name that you will see emails come from me under. We'll have a logo in the next few months. We're going to have somebody work on a new logo and some pamphlets and kind of upgrade the whole thing. So we will now be called Retroactive, which is very positive. And I also like the fact that it doesn't necessarily make it sound like you have to be retired to join, which you don't. Um, and so that's what you'll see going forward. So, any rate, as you all know, we will be recording. We are recording this program for anybody who missed it or wants to go back and check on anything. It'll be available on the YouTube, the library's YouTube, and I will have a link for that within a day or two after this. Um, and we'll get that out to you. We will take all questions in the chat today. It'll be easier unless we need somebody to explain a question or to further follow up on it, at which point I'll ask you to unmute. So, and other than that, I don't want to take up too much time, so let's get right to the program. I really want to thank our representative from the Douglas County Emergency Communications Department, their public education specialist, Dakota Waymeyer, who's with us today. Normally works night shifts, so this is really kind of her to be able to take some time out of her dispatching time and other responsibilities to join us and do a presentation. So having said that, Dakota, if you're ready, we're ready to go.
Okay, let's see if this will let me share my screen with you guys. Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Cool. Okay, so as he said, I'm Dakota Waymeyer. I work for the Douglas County Emergency Communications Division. We're going to go over Smart 911 and what Smart 911 entails. Move on to this next slide here. For those of you that don't know, Smart 911 allows you to answer questions about yourself and your family and anyone in your household, your pets, your vehicles, any information on that to help emergency responders whenever there is an emergency where you're calling 911 for. Whenever you do call 911, when you have a Smart 911 profile, that is the only time that that information will be shared with us. We can't pull that information up willy-nilly on our own. It has to be you guys calling 911 from the phone number that's attached to your account. If anyone cares about this, I won't go into super detail about the Rogue Mobile safety security. Basically, Rave is what pops up on our screen. On our end, it's called Rave over Smart 911. And so it'll pop up a little extra box on our screen that allows us to see all of your Smart 911 information. And then will also allow us to send you text messages from that little Brave box that pops up. In case we can't get you on the phone, we can send a text message to the phone number that's attached to that account. So this safety security is just basically going over how the system doesn't share your information with us unless you're calling, and all of their backup information, how they keep your guys' information stored is basically what this slide goes over. I'm going to switch slides here. We're going to move on to showing you guys how to create your account. So whenever you sign into the Smart 911 system online, it will look like this screen here. And the little sign up button is going to be in your top right corner. It's going to be green. And that's what you're going to want to press first to create your first account. You want to press the green one to create the first account. And then every time that you go in after that to sign in to update anything, you're going to press the white button to the sign in screen. I suggest using any usernames and passwords that you would normally use for any account that you're used to signing into. That way it's not something that you forget easily. Use whatever emails attached to your accounts normally if you have multiple emails, whichever one you're checking most frequently, because they do send updates on making sure that you're going in and updating your account. They do require that every 6 months you go in and check your account and make sure everything's up to date. If you don't go in every 6 months and check your account will be deleted. So you have to sign in at least once every 6 months to be able to keep this information in the system. Whenever you sign in, you're going to want to do the new user option, and it's going to look like this screen here. And so every screen that has the little red asterisk, if you guys can see in this screen grab of it, is what is required. So the preferred language, it does not have to be English. You can click multiple different languages on there, and then it's going to have your first and last names, and it's going to have you create a user ID and your password and confirm those things, and then a phone number.
Dakota, what
Uh-huh.
we're seeing is the slide that says first thing dispatch sees. So I'm not sure we're on the same slide you're on.
Interesting.
Sorry about that.
You're fine. Let's see what it's doing here.
There you go. Now
Okay.
we see creating an account.
Okay.
All right.
System might just be a little slow. We've been having some difficulties with this laptop today.
Yep.
Okay, so creating an account, the little red asterisk again is the fields that are required. It's kind of hard to see on this little screen grab. But again, you'll have your preferred language, does not have to be English, whatever you use primarily. Then a first and last name, and then it will have you create a user ID and password, and it will have you confirm that password. Again, I would try and use a username and password that you use for other accounts. That's way you know what that user ID and password is, so you're not forgetting what those sign-ins are, because they do require that sign-in once every 6 months. The phone number option, I would attach whatever phone number is for you the most often. If you have multiple phone numbers that you're using for like work or for home, the one that's with you most of the time. If you're a couple and you're creating an account together, I would use whichever phone number you guys have that the person keeps on them most often and is willing to answer more often, because that's the phone number that if an emergency happens and that phone calls, we're going to be calling that number back. And it will let you attach if it's a mobile or landline. And then you'll go to the bottom screen and it'll have the I agree to the terms of use button. You want to make sure that you click that and then click create an account, because if you don't click that agree to term of use and then press create account, a lot of the time it'll delete all of your information that you just typed in and you'll have to go in and retype it all, which can be very frustrating. Any questions so far?
One thing I wanted to just quickly ask, and I'm not sure if anybody else has, what you said about using the one phone. The other possibility would be if, like, if there's a couple, if each of us put our own mobile phone and had our own account on it, that way whoever was reporting the emergency would be able to get through. It'd just be a lot more work, but we can do two accounts that way. Is that not correct?
You will just have to enter all the information again on each account. So it'll
Okay.
be an extra step for you guys, but you can definitely do that. If you do decide to have just one account for the household, you can add multiple phone numbers to the account. It just won't be the primary one used for the account. It'll be like a drop down that dispatch can use to see the excess phone numbers for the account if we need to try and contact multiple phone numbers.
Okay. And somebody also asked about the link for setting up the account. And I will send that out to everybody afterwards, um, uh, because I think it's a fairly lengthy thing to talk out. It's Douglas County, Kansas government/emergency communications 911. But I think the easiest thing to do is if I just send it out to everybody as soon as this is over. So you'll have that link in an email, if that's okay. That was one of the questions. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dakota.
I'm sorry, I think the screen froze, so I didn't hear what you asked.
Oh, somebody was asking about the link to sign up. And I thought the easiest thing to do would just be to send out the link when we're finished.
We can do that. It should also be the very first thing that pops up whenever you like Google Smart 911. It'll be
Yeah.
that first one that pops up. It'll have the, if you guys can see on this creating an account screen, it'll have that little green box with the little eye in it with the little suitcase. That'll be like what's attached to the system. And so if you
Okay.
see that little symbol, whenever you click on the link, that's the correct one.
Okay. All right. There's a couple more questions, but let's go on a little bit. Maybe we'll get answered, and then we'll come back and grab some more questions.
Once you get inside of Smart 911, it's going to have you start answering a bunch of questions about you and your household. Oh, this thing just has a mind of its own today. It's going to start you with a medications list and any medical information. I did take screen grabs of multiple of this screen. I won't go through every single one of them, but I'll show you some of the things that are on it. You'll want to list this for yourself and anyone else that's in your family whenever you add extra people onto the account. It'll have like where you can pick allergies. It can pick if you have breathing problems, like if you have heart failure, if you have COPD, those things you can click on there to list so that first responders will be aware of. It'll also show like if you have cancers and then general medical conditions that you can click. If you suffer from anything, even if it's something that you're temporarily going through at the moment, I would go ahead and click it. That way we can be aware of it. If you do end up calling and you aren't able to tell us what's going on, we can look at it and see if there is something that could be causing an emergency. Again, you can always sign back in and you can edit these if it's something that you aren't going to be experiencing full time. A lot of people say on this implanted medical devices, some people will have defibrillators that aren't necessarily fully implanted at the moment. So you can go in and change that option once you get like a surgery for a fully implanted device. And so these are just all of the things that you can click on to go through. I really like this option for the medical therapies and equipment. It has information on if you have like visiting nurses or any in-home health care, or if you require oxygen. Those types of things are really good for medical providers to know whenever the EMS is coming to you, so they know what to expect. And again, just more medical conditions that you guys can attach to your account. It is really good for the prescription medications section to click if you're on any of the ones that are on there. It's really important to know if you guys are on blood thinners, if you need insulin, those types of things, because those are major things that can cause emergencies very easily. If you don't necessarily have a great control over your diabetes, or if you're someone that get high and lows very easily, it's really good to know that you need insulin on your account. That way, if it pops up, we can know maybe this person's having a diabetic emergency. That way, the first responders that are coming to help you can know to have that prepared in case that is what they're going to need to give you. Same with the blood thinners option. That's another very important one to know about. Because if you are someone that's on blood thinners and you get a cut, a lot of times that cut can bleed more out of control than a normal person because of that blood thinner. And so something simple as a small cut with a kitchen knife while you're chopping food could turn into a very emergency situation because of those blood thinners. Okay. And then here at the bottom of your medical list, you'll have a special note section, and that's where you can list any concerns that you may have or anything extra that's not already listed in your medical options. So like this example has like what their cell phone provider is and the type of weapons they have in their house. Those are good things to add in the special notes department if you guys do have any weapons in your home, or for like doing your cell phone provider, that's in case we can't find you and someone's requesting that we ping your phone. It's a lot easier to ping your phone if we already know who your phone provider is, because we can just contact them directly and let them know the situation that's going on. If you don't have that information in there, whenever you are calling, we have to go on a search and search up your phone number and try and figure out who your provider is and then contact them to get the process started. So having that in there just makes it a lot easier to get that process started if it's needed. Okay. Any questions right now before we move on to the next section?
Yeah, there was one question, and I'll go ahead and just ask it while we're here. If I don't have an account and I have an emergency and just call 911, what is the option? So I guess what you're trying to say is you won't have to tell them all this stuff that they'll already know. Is I would assume that's the answer to that. Is that correct?
Basically, whenever you call 911, if you don't have a Smart 911 account, it just won't populate any account information. Even if you do have a Smart 911 account, we still ask the basic information. We'll still ask for the address twice. We'll still ask for your phone number twice. We'll still ask what your name is. We'll go over the same steps no matter if you have an account or not. The point of the account is to help if you are in an emergency and you can't speak to us, we can look at that account and be like, oh, this could be this person at this address. And we can, whenever you call 911, it shows a little box on our screen that shows like latitude and longitude of where the cell phone's pinging. So we can type that latitude and longitude in and see if it's near the address that you have listed on your account to determine where that emergency is happening. If that latitude and longitude is showing somewhere that's not near the address, we're going to go with where your cell phone's pinging, in case you're like out and about or at a grocery store or driving through town or something like that and having an emergency. But it's basically there so that we know, hey, this could be the address that they're at. This could be a vehicle that they're in. Like, this is how many people's in the house. Like, if you have in there that you are requiring medication, say you're diabetic and you're having an insulin low or an insulin high, you might not be able to speak to us. But if you can still dial 911, we can use that information to get some help started at least.
Okay. The other question is, do you have published information to share with friends or neighbors of the people who are on here, or is it just the website itself?
You can send them the website itself. If you come to the sheriff's office building and on the second floor where the sheriff's window is, if you go to the right of that down the hallway a little bit, there's pamphlets that hang on the walls there. And there is normally, if they're not all taken at the moment, pamphlets on Smart 911. It just if people take them all, we just have to go refill them, or you can always ask the sheriff's office window to get one if there is none in that little section of pamphlets. But the sheriff's office does have a whole wall of pamphlets, not just on Smart 911, but on all the programs that the sheriff's office offers.
And the last question for right now is, can you provide information like how you enter a home, like who has keys, if a neighbor has keys or whatever?
You
Is
can.
that something that can be entered in Smart 911?
It is. Whenever you get to that little bottom section, whenever you're done entering your information, it'll have the little other tab, which if you guys can see on the first things
Yep.
dispatcher screen, it'll have a little other tab. And in that section, you can type in things for us to see. And so you can put in there that whoever has a key, or if you have a lockbox and like the code for that lockbox, that's good information to put in there. If you guys have like medical alarm companies that you use, if you have any medical alarms that you press or that you call whenever you have an emergency as well, it's very good to make sure that they also have that information, because they will call us at the same time if you press your medical alarm button. And so if they have that information, they will give that to us automatically as well.
Okay. All right. I'll let you keep going and then we'll pick up the questions after you've gone on a little further.
Okay. So this is just an example of what dispatch sees. So whenever you have your account set up and you call 911, this is what pops up on our screen. It'll give the people you have added to your accounts names and their sexes, how old they are, and then each little medical button we can click on and see that person's medical information. You have an option to add a picture, so you can, that's what the little camera button's for. And then it'll show addresses. If you have multiple addresses, say you have a home here in town, but you also frequent your parents' house or your children's house, like out in the county or something, you can also put that in there in the address field as a secondary address. So we know, hey, they could be at either one of these. Same with vehicles. If you have multiple vehicles, you can add all of those vehicles in there. And same with all of the information down below. If you have animals, emergency contacts, all of that, you can add multiple things to it. This little second section over here that says facility profile doesn't fully apply to you guys, but if you guys do have businesses that you're a part of, you can set up a profile for your business as well. And put in like who the responsible party is for the business, what the address of the business is, like your lockbox information for the business, if you have it like alarm codes and stuff like that. It's good to have that set up as well. Then at the very top here, you'll see a little double bubble box, and that's what dispatchers can click on if you're not answering us whenever we're verbally trying to speak to you. We'll click on that little double message bubble, and it'll bring up a texting screen, and we can send a text message directly to the phone that's calling. Obviously, if it's a landline, you're not going to get that. But if you're using a cell phone, we can send that text message. And that way, if you can't communicate with us verbally, but you can still type out a message, we can still talk back and forth and figure out what your emergency is and who you need assistance from. Okay, this is just an example of people's profiles of what you can set up, how you can put a picture, a personal description, any other information about the person, all your medical conditions, phone numbers associated with them, and then down here at the bottom, can add the additional people. And this additional profile just shows it you can make it look exactly the same as the first initial profile. We just use these little red drop down arrows to be able to open the multiple calls for the day. Where it's saying over here, this is the list of the calls this dispatcher had answered for that day. It's just showing how many people that we talked to that day that had Smart 911 profiles popped up. We can't go back and look at those. We get about an hour where that profile is showing up while people are handling the call. And then that profile disappears. So we can't go back and look at your information if you're not directly contacting 911. And once the call is over, where you're no longer dealing with 911, that information goes away so that we aren't being able to look at that information. Here's just an example of your house information. This is very helpful for, like it says, for the fire department. If you can list like your utility shutoffs at your home, any hydrant locations, if you have a fire hydrant near your house. This is also an additional place you can put that lockbox information or key information if you have a hidden key anywhere. This is especially helpful if you live out in the country. Anywhere in the county, if you can put like, oh, like the second hill on this road and my driveway will be after that second hill, those types of descriptors that they can use to help them find it, especially if it's dark outside, if it's in the middle of the night and they're trying to locate your address. It's also good if you had a fire, say this person put 3 bedrooms or 1 or more bedrooms on the same level in the main entrance. That's way if there's a fire, they know how many rooms they're going to be checking. They know who's in what room. They have like the heating type, if you have like natural gas or if you like heat off of electricity, those are good to know so that we know if we need to contact a gas company or an electric company in that situation. And then again, the fire hydrant locations are really good for the fire department to know if you have one near your house. And then again, just your shut off locations for anything in your home in case you're having those emergencies, a water pipe breaks, or you have a gas leak, or you have an electrical fire. Those shut off locations are important so they know where to go directly to the source to get that taken care of for your home. Okay, and this is just a photo of going over how to enter the information for your house. This is the screen that you guys will see whenever you're entering that information. The previous screen was what dispatch sees whenever you guys are calling 911. As you can tell, these don't have any of the little red asterisks on it because you're not required to enter any of this information. The real basic requirements whenever you're making a Smart 911 profile are your name, and like your username, your password, and a phone number are your basic requirements. You don't have to go in and add all this extra information if you don't want to, but it is helpful just in case. And another good thing is you can put an image of your home, which is really great. If you have an image there, we can describe to the first responders, hey, you're going to be looking for a cream colored house that has 4 pillars on the front. And then I can use the extra information that they put, like, oh, it's a cream house with 4 pillars, but it's on the corner. There's a fire hydrant in front of it, those types of things to help them easily locate the house that they're looking for if you're not able to help describe it to us. And that's just extra on the home information, what it will look like to you guys. And then here at the bottom, like someone was asking earlier, the access information, you can put it in the address field whenever it says access information, but you can also put it in that other tab. That way, if you have it in multiple locations, it's a little bit easier for us to find. But if you just want to have it in one main central location, this access information will pop up with the address field for your home. So we don't have to go digging through that other tab to find it.
We do have a couple questions, Dakota, which
Yeah.
I'd like to throw in now. You answered it relative to texts, obviously, which don't apply to landlines, but are there other limitations to using a landline phone in this other than that?
It really depends on the situation. Landline phones for this, whenever you call from a landline, if you have it set up it will, whenever you call from that, it automatically shows what address is attached to that landline whenever you call 911 anyways. Whereas a cell phone is going to ping from cell phone tower. So a landline's good in that sense, is that whenever you call from that, it's going to show us the address that's associated with that to begin with. And so if you don't have that landline signed up on your Smart 911, it's not going to be that bad of a situation because we still have an address to go off of at least.
Okay.
What was that?
Yeah, no, that's all right. I didn't mean to interrupt you. There was one more question, but if you weren't finished.
Oh, go ahead.
The other question is, what area does Douglas County Smart 911 cover? Do we get into Ottawa, Kansas, or is it the county line itself?
So it'll be at the very last page of the facts page whenever we get there.
Oh,
But for Smart 911, your account covers any agency that has Smart 911 capabilities. So if you're in another state, but that agency has Smart 911 and you call 911 in that state, your account should be populating for them. Not all agencies use the Smart 911 system attached to their dispatching center. So if they don't have that capability attached to their dispatch center, that's not going to pop up. But if you're in an area that has that their dispatch center pays to have access to that, it will populate for them. I'm not sure if Franklin County, the Ottawa area, has Smart 911 attached to their dispatch center since they're such a small center. But most of the ones in this area should be having access to Smart 911. So if you were calling in Ottawa, it should be populating for them if they have the Smart 911 attached to their systems.
okay. That's the last of the questions we have. So
Okay.
go ahead with.
Okay, this just goes over the vehicle associations on your account. The only thing that is unfortunate about the vehicle association is it does not allow you to attach a vehicle picture. So put as much information in there about your vehicle as you can. I haven't looked at it fully recently, but most of the time it will let you add, like if you have damage to your vehicle or if you have stickers on your vehicle, those types of things, so that maybe there is a dark blue with black trim Ford Escape, two of them parked in that neighborhood. But if you put that yours has the front bumper missing, they're going to be able to identify that easier. Next is just going over animal information. You can put any animals that you have in your home in the system, everything that you can about them, and then emergency contacts for those animals. If you're having a medical emergency or a police emergency, those types of things, and you have animals in your home, they're going to want to contact someone to take care of those animals for you so that you're not freaking out and they're not leaving an animal home alone. The unfortunate thing is if you, like, say, have your dog with you whenever you're driving around town, you get into an accident, you're injured, you have to go to the hospital. They need to figure out what to do with your dog because they can't keep it. You can't take the dog to the hospital with you. So if you have emergency contacts for your animals, we can contact that person and be like, hey, can you come pick up this animal for so-and-so? They were in an incident where they need to go to the hospital or like whatever situation happened. If you can come take care of this animal. If you don't have those contacts, animal control will be called in for that animal and it will get taken to the Humane Society. Which isn't the easiest situation to deal with. I know a lot of people might not have the means to go over to the Humane Society across town and go get those animals back. So it's great to have an emergency contact for your animals in the situation that would be necessary to have. This is a little snippet of what it'll look like in your email whenever you get the notifications to request and update your profile information. Like I said earlier, this is what will happen every 6 months. You will need to go into your account at least every 6 months and make sure that all of your information's up to date to be able to keep your account. You should be getting this email if you haven't already signed into your account, so that it's a reminder to be able to go back in and update your information. If you don't have anything to update, that's fine. Still sign into your account, go over it and make sure for sure, because they might go in and add another section that you can add more information to. You never know. And then just like press the update button inside of the account. So that way the system knows, hey, I'm still wanting my information to be a part of this system. Because if not, your account will be deleted and we won't get to see that information anymore. Then you'll have to go back through and re-enter all that information, which is never fun. It also gives other information like the Amber Alert system information, how to spread word about the Smart 911 initiative. It has a little link that you can click there in those emails for the Smart 911 outreach materials. So if you ever get this email and you have someone new that you know that wants to discover the program, you can forward that link to them to be able to look at the information for Smart 911. The Smart Save Award is an award that Smart 911 gives out for people that have used their systems and it saved lives. So basically, Smart 911 Save Award is for that, and it'll show information on that once in a while. Now, this is just a few tips whenever you're dealing with the system. Like I said earlier, your information is only available on our screen for 1 hour whenever you call 911, and then it's gone forever. And so if you call 911 at 7 a.m., we handle your emergency. That information's gone by 8 a.m. We can't go back at 9 a.m. and pull your information back up. We can't do that. It's already gone. And if you don't call 911, we don't have any access to that information at all. It's not something that we can go in and look through at any point in time. Smart 911 keeps it all backed up and forwards it to us whenever your phone's calling. And for the second tip, we do not have the capability to change any information for you. If you're needing something changed on your account, that is something that you will have to sign in and do yourself. We do not have access to your guys' accounts. We do not know your usernames, your passwords, any of that information to be able to go in and change information for you. If you're getting a new lockbox or if you changed the code to your alarm system, those types of things, you need to try and do immediately whenever they happen. So that way we have the most accurate information up to date in that moment. If you changed your alarm code that day and then you call 911, we're going to have the old information if you didn't already go in there and update it. And then it could take longer to get into you if you cannot verbalize to us what the new password is. Like it says in that very bottom tip what we went over, Smart 911 is available anywhere that the program is used. So if you sign up here and travel somewhere else, your information will still be available to whatever agency you call into. Whatever state it is, whatever county it is, if they are attached to Smart 911, your information will populate. It's not just a Douglas County wide program. It is a national wide program that people use. So it's very good, especially if you're traveling, and you can go in that other section and put your travel information in there. Say know that you're traveling from here in Lawrence to Arizona to see your kids. You can go in that others tab and you can put in there, had plans to travel from Lawrence, Kansas to Phoenix, Arizona, from this date to this date. Like this were the routes that we were taking. Like this is the vehicle we took. If you took like a rental car and for any information like that to be able to help if you're in another state and your profile's popping up for something. And again, just if anyone wanted to see it, this is the safety guidelines for the Rave Mobile, which is what pops up on our end for Smart 911 on how they keep your guys' information safe. It is a completely separate facility from ours where they keep all this information on their hard drives, and they have annual training on the security for it. They have auditing on it. So they're making sure that people are not getting access to your information if you do not want them to have access. It's just a really important thing to stress. If you call 911, that's the only time we get to see that information.
That leads to one of the, I'm going to skip one question and go to this one. Another question somebody asked, and I guess it's basically about the security of Rave. He wants to know who runs and owns Rave and who audits them, to I guess confirm their security of your information being there.
I don't know that since I don't work for Rave specifically, who audits them or anything, but they do get audited to make sure that your information is not being shared. I would assume it's some type of security or government entity that goes in there and makes sure that their systems are up to date so that your information is not being leaked, just like health insurance companies would have.
Okay. The other question that we had is, this person saying, I assume we can add information without having to start a new account. So you can go in at any time and update this, not just the monthly times. Is that correct?
Yes, you can sign into your account at any point in time. Whenever you go on the website and use the little sign in button with your username and password, you can go in and edit that information at any point in time. It's good to go in there and edit it more frequently than every 6 months, especially if you're buying new vehicles or adding additions to your families, or if you get a new pet, or if you get new lock boxes. You go in and add that stuff anytime that's happening. There's no limit on how many times that you can sign in there and update your information.
Terrific. I think that's the end of the questions. If you want to go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. That leads us to the end of the information. If we have any other questions that anyone wants to ask here at the end.
Are there any additional questions for anyone?
Jack, I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is John Nalbandian.
Uh-huh.
I want to know if the 911, if the people who staff the 911, if we actually have information about the kinds of calls, the problems that people call about. Is there a category? Have the calls been categorized so we know what people are calling about?
So it really depends on the person or the situation that's going on. If we have someone that calls in a lot because they need a lift assist, which if you guys don't know what that means, it means that someone's fallen, but they're not injured and they just need someone to help get them up on their feet again. Whenever we type in addresses or phone numbers, we add those to the calls, and then we have a call nature that's put in with them as well. And so whenever that number calls 911 again, we can go back and look at the call history with that phone number in our system specifically, not other systems for anywhere else, and see what call history we've had with them. So we can look through that history and see, hey, this person's had 6 lift assist in the past year. Maybe this is what they're calling for, is another lift assist. But we don't necessarily go and look at that information unless that person can't talk to us and we're finding other routes to go about to try and figure out what's going on.
I want to follow up with that. When I was on the board of the domestic violence center, we were told that the majority of 911 calls that occur in the evening are for domestic violence. Is that established?
I honestly don't know the statistics on that. That would be something that our director would run numbers on. I don't get access to that type of information.
Okay.
We do have spurts where obviously domestics are more prevalent. If someone calls in for a domestic, we do tell the officers. We can look back in the call history with that number or that address, and we are required to disclose to officers if there has been domestic history with that address or with that phone number within the past 2 years. That is like a federal requirement that we have to disclose that to officers within the past 2 years if what they're going to is another domestic.
Okay, we're going to run to a couple questions that were posted in chat. The first one is, I live in Overland Park. Smart 911 does not appear to be here, but it is in Shawnee and of course Lawrence. Is it smart to join when I am traveling?
I would still have an account no matter what, especially if you're frequenting areas that do have Smart 911. You can still put your address in there in the address field and just put that it's out of those jurisdictions. So whenever you're calling, say you're in Lawrence or passing through Douglas County, and you need to call, that profile will still populate for us. And so if you're traveling frequently to those areas, it's a very good idea to have that account set up just in case.
Okay, that's great. Somebody asked if the URL will be posted. It has been, but I also will send it out by email. Another question was, can temporary information be entered without wiping out more permanent information?
I guess it would
Not
depend on what type of temporary information you're trying to add in there. If it's something that you're concerned is going to wipe out any information, you can always add it to that additional notes box in each section or to the other tab for people to go find that information. you should be able to like add more to each section, like add another vehicle or add another person, those types of things, and then go back and delete that addition later if necessary.
Okay. Another question is, can I specify which hospital I want to be taken to for various medical conditions?
You can put that in there, but dispatch is the only person that sees these profiles. The medics don't see those profiles. And so unless they're asking us to look through Smart 911 for that, they're not going to be told that information. That's not information that we just give out off the fly.
Okay. This is another question. I joined late, but was wondering if there was a discussion about the red file for the refrigerator. I talked to the sheriff's department earlier and said it would be helpful. For those people who don't know what that's about, you can actually manually do some of this information and keep it in a file attached magnetically to your refrigerator, and emergency services know to go look for that. You know, it seems a bit of a duplication, and this would get information to them faster. But you could do both, right?
You could do both. It really depends on what your preference is. If people have like medical alarms, a lot of the time, if you disclose that to your medical alarm company and then you use your medical alarm and they're calling us for assistance, they will disclose, hey, they have their medical information on the fridge or they have their medical information stored in this spot. So they'll pass that information along if it's necessary.
Okay. And if you're at another address for a few months, we have a few people who travel during the winter or the summer to go other locations. Do you add that address in the other locations only?
I would add it as a secondary address in the address specific field on the account. And you can put in the other field that you're only at those addresses during like this month to this month. But whenever you're calling 911, your phone should be pinging and calling 911 in the area that you're in. So if you have an address here in Lawrence, but you also have an address in Florida that you go to for the winter time, if you're in Florida and you're calling 911, they should know that you're calling from the address in Florida, not from the one in Lawrence.
Okay. And apparently the URL I posted, I must have had a typo because it's not working. You can just Google Smart 911 and that works, but I will recheck it and send it out to everybody as well. So we're getting to the end of those questions that we have so far. Any more questions before we call this an evening and let us dispatcher get back to work, or do you have more stuff to ask? I don't want to stop as long as there's questions.
Yep, I'm here to answer anything that I can, but as far as the presentation part, that's over. I don't have any more information on the presentation for you guys.
Okay. So I don't see anything more in the chat. So at this point, I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining us, Dakota. I really appreciate it. I think it was really well done. I don't think everybody needs to or may not want to do this. I think it's kind of a lot of work up front, but it pays off. I'm not sure. I'm trying to sift through everybody who's here, and it's a little hard for me to see the list on my small screen. I just wanted to know if Dean Dunlap was here, and if so, if he'd unmute. I don't hear yet. He had sent me an email.
Yeah, I'm
And
here. Can you hear
how
me?
are you? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to kind of tell your story a little bit? The email you sent to me, I thought was terrific, and I'd like you to kind of talk about your experience with Smart 911.
Well, it basically just dovetail on what Dakota just presented. And by the way, hi, Dakota. I'll be brief. I told Jack I had some experience with Smart 911. It began about 21 years ago when, with the relationship with Children's Mercy Hospital with my adopted daughter, Aisha. She was born with polycystic kidneys and was life flighted into Children's Mercy Hospital back then. In the subsequent years, she's been through 2 kidney transplants and 13 years of home dialysis. Now, in order to become a patient of Children's Mercy Dialysis Center in their kidney transplant program, you have to sign a pretty extensive contract with them. And there's a number of stipulations: no travel beyond 3 hours from Children's Mercy, training and recurrent training in home dialysis, home sanitation, backup generator, on and on. And you have to notify your local EMR, local emergency management response, of your child's medical condition. So in order to satisfy them, I took my needs and went to the Douglas County EMR and told them what I needed, and their eyes kind of rolled back and they're glazed, and they said, we don't have the staff to do a listing of all the medical conditions and keep them accurate. They said, but we just signed a contract with a program called Smart911. And I said, okay, I don't know the first thing about it, but I'll take a look at it. So I quickly learned how to set up the account, and I started, populating it. And I found out that it really was a perfect repository and a communication medium for emergency response notification should it be needed. I also found out how fortunate we are to have an EMR that has subscribed to Smart911. Back then, we were one of only a few in the metro area that had this Smart911 capability. So anyway, I populated it with the information. I started in and I put in her base medical description. In other words, what does a first responder really have to know if they come upon the scene? Her current medical treatments, her primary medical staff, contact information at Children's Mercy and at KU Pediatrics. I listed her identified allergies, also some non-nominal health readings like her blood sugars, which, that it kind of gets a little wonky with some of the medications. Also, some of her primary and secondary family contacts, so you had a backup. I also put together a brief outline of my house, and I denoted her bedroom and our exits and utility shut-off locations. That's what Dakota was talking about. That kind of information would help in an emergency situation. But the one thing I did find was that I quickly needed a retrievable and updated medication listing, because my daughter's historical medication list was and current medication was 3 pages long, single spaced. So that was constantly changing. So I turned to another program introduced to me by Children's Mercy to handle the logistics of her extensive medication. It's called My Med Schedule Pro. It's free. It's available on both the app stores. And that was what we used to try and coordinate her medications. But I also started working with the management of Smart911 and My Med Schedule to try and get a link established between the two companies. At one time, they were going forward with it, but I'm not sure they still do. Because first responders coming upon a medically fragile individual need not only to know what the base information is, but also what to know the medications are being taken by that person that was summoned by Smart911. So just basically in summary, I tried to keep this quick. If you have a medical condition or you are a caregiver, the tagged and identified cell phone via secure 911 communication link is the best chance for a positive outcome via a clear, concise, and immediate medical communication. And we used it for a better portion of 13, 14 years. You reminded me, though, Dakota, that I need to get in there and update it. So, but I do appreciate it. Anyway, it's a good program. Sign up. Doesn't cost you anything. We're very lucky to have it. It's not cheap. I know what it used to cost the county, but it's worth it. And if it saves a couple of lives, then go for it. That's it, Jack.
Thank you, Dean. I really appreciate that. And I think that'll give our members a little thought about the time it takes to kind of sign up and do it, but its value if you do that. So, there's an advocacy for it as well. I want to thank again, before we close out, I want to again thank Dakota for taking the time out of her schedule to do this, and for the county to provide this community information to us. As I said, the recording will be up, so if you have any other information, and there is the website, which once again, I'll correct and get that to you. But as I said, if you just put in Smart 911, it came up pretty quickly for me. So, and my guess is it would come up in whatever county you're in as well, the same way. So thank you, Dakota. Appreciate it very much. And hopefully everybody got a lot out of this, and it's something to think about or maybe participate in. I will be typing over the next weekend myself because I need to get this done as well. So once again, and thank you all for joining us this evening. And we'll see you at one of the next events we have for Retroactive. Appreciate you joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me. The county is always wanting to help promote any programs that we pay for. If anyone does have any questions, they're always willing. You're always welcome to come to the sheriff's office and ask at the front desk or catch and ask any questions that you have to the dispatchers that are working the floor. I do just ask that if you are calling dispatch to ask questions, please make sure you're using the non-emergency lines. Do not use 911 to ask questions about Smart 911.
Okay, that's great. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you at the next event. Appreciate it. Appreciate you all joining us.